So for my presentation, I chose to do empathy in relationships. Throughout the semester, we have been learning the exact definition of empathy. And empathy can be defined as the ability to share and understand the feelings of someone that is not yourself. This can be in the conversations you have with other people, or also in articles that you read, really anywhere that you have the chance to take the perspective of another in the situations that they are dealing with. In a study done that was entitled Empathy Neglect, Reconciling the Spotlight Effect and the Correspondence Bias, perspective taking, the spotlight effect, and the correspondence bias were all observed. In the 3 different studies performed by these 3 researchers, participants were given a task where they would measure their own performance, and they would also be told that other groups of people would be measuring their performance as well. These groups consisted of a solver, a contestant, or a singer. Those who were to be evaluating the performers had insight to the conditions that made the task difficult. Observers who were able to empathize with the performers were more lenient on their evaluations because they were able to take the perspective of the other. However, the performers were often unable to estimate the ability of the evaluator to significantly take this under consideration. It was shown in this study that most people have dark views of others' motivations, and they have intense fears of harsh evaluations and think that they should have done better. This is largely due to both the spotlight effect as well as the correspondence bias. The spotlight effect is thinking and feeling that everyone is more in tune with our personal behaviors and actions than they actually are. This can be especially enhanced when we are in a position as if we feel our performance is being judged. For a correspondence bias, it is best described as when an explanation for behavior has emphasis placed on internal characteristics rather than the external factors or situations. This is important to remember because in the study done, participants were given impossible scenarios to perform in, which led to the fear of the evaluators being unable to understand why they had performed so poorly. However, it was shown that the evaluators were able to empathize with the situations that the participants were given, and therefore they did not judge as harshly. Another aspect where empathy is important is in your interpersonal interactions. This can be defined as the exchanging of information, feeling, and meaning by verbal and nonverbal cues with someone else. In week 8, when we saw the excerpt from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, we saw when Jeff was meeting Mr. Rogers for the first time. Mr. Rogers asked Jeff questions about his fancy wheelchair and why he was in a wheelchair, but he focused largely on the abilities that Jeff did have. When he spoke directly with Jeff, and emphasis was never placed on the disability. I think that it was really important to learn from the way that Mr. Rogers was interacting with Jeff. He always addressed him personally and focused on his abilities rather than the things that he could not do. Whenever they were talking about being blue, he found a way to make it positive. He truly took the time to gain perspective from Jeff and feel the things that he had experienced. This is one of the greatest displays of empathy that we saw all semester. Relevant to this topic, one of the most valuable pieces of advice I have ever received was from a leadership conference a couple years ago, when one of the speakers said that it's not about commonality, but about curiosity. Meaning that when you meet someone, it's important to be curious in what drives someone in their goals and aspirations, and curiosity in their point of view on events in their life, not necessarily about the ones that you will have in common. Empathy is best exercised through these moments because you are essentially forced to place yourself in their shoes and imagine the perspective that they had. This was also shown just like Mr. Rogers did when he spoke with children. Empathy is something that needs to be regularly exercised in order to maintain and have flourishing relationships with others. It is important to make sure that those around you know that you care and that you are willing to be able to provide the support that they need if it is needed. This is especially important for those who are the closest to you. Think about how draining it can be when you feel like those around you aren't interested in the things that you are going through or in the things that you have accomplished. Strive to make sure that no one feels that way because of the lack of empathy that you are showing in these moments. Thank you all for watching.